Hello, this is Teresa J. Thurmond Morris, and we're back. Hello, world. This is TJ Morris, and you're listening to ET Radio. Welcome aboard, all you ground troops spinning around smartly out there. Yes, it's almost over. When the tough get going, the goings get tough. So, what's everybody doing? It's been a rough day today on the planet. Boy, the news really was depressing. What's going on out there? We're going to talk today about the UFO Secret Space Command topics, levels, timelines, and metaphysics. Hey! I'm going to be speaking American English, as that is what I learned when I came to this planet. Now, there's many ways to talk to humanoids, sentient, intelligent being species, and I've done my best to learn how to be. There's a lot of things going on in the alien ET UFO community, and we are going to help with alienology, ufology, and cosmology because we like it. Now, Thursdays we're going to begin opening dialogue, but some of the people that we're going to be forming in the future are some of the old guys, and some of them are new guys, and some of them are somewhere in between. Our listening audience can be anywhere from 13 to 133, and Ken Johnston says he's going to live to be at least 189, so we may work out some kinks. Now, I've invited Janet Carroll Lesson, who helped me start this show on her behalf because we were promoting Stargate to the cosmos. Now we have Stargate Portal and Stargate Con, and she's online. Yes, I see you, Janet. Let me get you on here. She's like, do you see me? I'm here.
I'm here. I'm sorry.
Well, I was calling you.
My alarm was trying to wake me, but I was just...
You're like in another world, right? Literally. Ken Johnston panel on UFO Secret Space Radio Show tonight. Forward message.
Well, Ken,
let's see. Yeah, he's just giving me a message. All I need to know is what time I'll be there and confirm that it's tonight. Can you do me a favor and give him a quick call? All right, I'll keep talking while you give him a call.
You have to call. You have to call him from the back end of the show. Do you need his number? I called him while I was out and about, and he said he'll be ready. And he said to call.
Oh, he wants me to. I don't have the thing. Let's see. Where I'm at, I don't have that call. Guess.
Let me text you his number.
You just have to tell him to call in on his cell phone. Hold on, folks. You know Ken Johnston is a good friend of ours. So Janet and I,
I'll tell him to call in on his cell phone. Oh,
thank you.
He was having trouble with his phone earlier. Okay.
Oh.
I'll go do that.
Once I start, it shows it until I build it. Then I'm inside the mainframe, and I have the algorithms to speak on the outside, but I can't get him
go
on
ahead and talk to the
real
people
outside.
TJ, go ahead and talk
and
to
the extraterrestrials
for a minute while I could
call. All right, put me on mute. Put me on mute.
I'll mute you.
You can three-way call him.
Let me try that. Let's see. Here we go.
But I don't know if you'll talk over each other. Call him on these other phones. Folks, sorry for the inconvenience. You remember Janet and I, two alpha extraterrestrials.
Yeah. I'll put you on mute for just a minute. You keep talking to our people.
Okay.
I know how you
know
how to cover so we don't have dead air time. I'll be right back.
All right, thank you. Enchant Hannah, who is one of our admins, she may pop over for a while if you can see this, everybody. We have a dilemma. Inside our community, after so many years, those of us that couldn't be in it because we had real jobs have come to like each other in some instances, but we didn't know that each other was while we're in uniform or out of uniform, civilian, we say, versus military, there's that level. And then there's people like good old Richard Dolan, who was used to make I used to go to people like Richard when they'd make you a profile and a biography outside of Fort Hood, Texas. But he was up in New York, Rochester, New York, and then he got to be a historian. And we've had him on here a couple of times or so, way back in the day. I think he was with somebody prior to, we will say, Tracy. Hello, Tracy. You've never met me, but I know you. So I love Richard, and Tracy just looks like the best thing that ever happened to him. No disrespect to Karen, of course, who is one of our friends here on TGMRCT Radio. I hope everything's going fine and everything's working out well for everybody with the kids. But we all have gone through that, me especially. So a glass house should not throw stones. Oh, spacecraft, let's get with it, okay? Humans, who are you really? This is something that when you have a soul and a spirit, and a lot of us are going to talk on various levels, and this is important. So thank you, everybody, for joining me back again on Thursday night. Let me put in a welcome to everybody that follows, that we have alienhunters.org with Daryl W. Sims, who, by the way, in Houston, Texas, coming up in January, we're having nice conference. Yay. So we're going to be dealing with Daryl Sims and alienology, and this is going to be, if you go to alienhunters.org, you will see one of the conferences, and it's dealing with the Indians, and I'm trying to get Rick Doty on here, but Rick's busy all the time, but he's agreed to do a show with us. So hurry up, Rick Doty.
TJ, did you hear it?
I hear you. Yeah, sure.
Okay, I didn't know if you heard. So Ken will be calling, so look for him.
Okay, I will.
Right now.
I'm watching board as we speak. Okay, well, as soon as I see him. Now, how we deal with mental health in the world.
What were you talking about?
I didn't get very far. I was just talking about alienology and Daryl Sims in Houston, and how in January we're having a conference. But it's going to be a one-day thing just to start, folks, because this is he's doing so many conferences and running around the world helping with alienology, being that he is the original alien hunter. But we'll have to pull that up, and I posted it on Alien Hunters. Janet, can you get to alienhunters.org on your computer?
I'll go take a look at it.
And then when Ken gets here, we're going to start how Ken and I and Janet started something a year ago, and I guess it's going to be our next project because he and Janet completed the Stargate to the Cosmos conference. So now we're going to connect it with probably Stargate Con and Stargate Portal and all that. But in the meantime, we got alienhunters.org to produce and promote with all our wonderful alien hunters out there. So we're going to talk tonight about alienology, cosmology, ufology. Sky Dancer UFO Con is, I found it, site, Sky Dancer. Janet, if you can look up Sky Dancer UFO Con, but alienhunters.org.
That's really interesting they're using Sky Dancer.
Really?
They have Sky Dancing Tantra, Sky Dancing.
Oh, that is
interesting.
They've had
Sky Dancing. Sky Dancer UFO, they're saying?
Sky Dancer UFO Con. Anyway, it's on Alien Hunters. It's on the top in the
okay, I'll go look at
web in the menu.
For years it was Sky
Click on
Dancing
it.
Tantra.
Interesting. Well, we will look for that. And I've got the chat room open.
I don't see it on UFO.
Top right, Alien Hunters, not Hunters with an S. Alien Hunters.
Oh, I got alienhunter.org, and it comes up with the Alien Hunter. It does. So you're saying plural. It's a different
Alien
site.
Hunters. Yeah,
okay,
plural.
because he also has Alien Hunter. That's his as well.
Hold on. Yes, his is on Mars. Ken Johnston made it. How are you, Ken?
Hey, Ken.
Well, I hope I'm getting hooked up right.
You're here. You got hooked up right. You check your air hose. We want to make sure you're hooked up right, Ken. Your life support system.
Hey, I can fly flying saucers, jet engines, and everything else, but you know what? We didn't have these cell phones back in my day.
Oh, okay. You're right. My kids have to teach me.
This is my
I'm still learning.
My secret space program is learning how to use all of this stuff.
Mine too, believe me. It's harder down here, folks. You know, we go up and tell the computer at the microwave, you know, computer, I'd like a cup of coffee, strong, Earl Grey tea, all that. But it doesn't happen, so we have to put it in ourselves and time it. It's really it's sort of a bummer down here, but we're doing our best. Ken, introduce yourself. Introduce yourself. We were going to talk about a Houston conference, but Janet's going to look it up. She knows how to introduce a conference. But first, you introduce yourself, if you don't mind.
Well, I've been called a lot of things by a lot of different people, but those people that know me, my name is Ken Johnston, Dr. Ken Johnston, or Ken Johnston Sr. Be sure you put the senior after, because my son gets a little upset when everybody calls him at his place with Microsoft. But I was with NASA for 14 years back during 1966 through, well, wherever 14 years goes. Anyway, I was one of the first 4 civilian astronauts and became the consultant pilots on the lunar module, because Grumman, that I worked for NASA, built the lunar module, and our job was test it in the vacuum chambers, be sure everything worked good, and then help train the regular NASA astronauts how to take it to the moon and land. Now, in my older days, I've discovered that maybe we had already been on the moon by a secret space program, and that's what I'm getting educated on now. And I expect to learn more than I present to the people tonight, the people that have been involved with the secret space program. Maybe you can help educate me.
Who are you studying? Ken, who are you studying that with? You said you're learning about it. Where are you studying? What track are you? How are you learning more about the secret space program aspect?
Well,
I think he's talking about us, Janet.
Yeah, I've been connected with Corey Good and with Brett Shepard and Janet Lesson and TJ Morris. We could go on all night.
There are a lot of okay.
Okay.
Well, have you talked to Chant Hanna lately? With the UFO Secret Space Group?
I have been chatting with Chat today, as a matter of fact.
Really? Is she coming on?
Well, that I can't answer. I don't know.
I can't either. I emailed her and you, so I'm glad y'all talked today. With Janet and I called you 3 or 4 times, but I'm glad that I finally saw your email pop up. Better late than never, but that's great. Chant Hanna is one of our big promoter administrators for our UFO Space Group. If you'd like to join, just go to Facebook and put in UFO Secret Space, and it should bring up our group here with TJ Mars ET Radio and myself promoting TJ Mars ET and all my friends. Now, Ken, there's I've got up here UFO Secret Space Command, topics, levels, timelines, and metaphysics. And, folks, we're going to get into the 3D boots on the ground structure, but after some of the ways of various people, Corey and David Wilcock and Emery Smith. Janet, do you have your phone right up? Let me see if that's you. Yep, it's her. Okay, hold on, Janet. We can hear everything you're doing with paper or whatever. You've got the best equipment in the world. Janet's just one. It is, and I can hear it in your. I've been listening to you. Yeah, it's probably because you don't know.
Headphones.
But it's not your head listening. It's your. Yeah, I just muted, but it's easy with this equipment. But Janet has got the best, but when she puts on her headphones, she doesn't realize when she's moving her hands, it's going into, and I hear that because I watch her on TV. Well, I listen to her on TV, and I've heard yours recently in December with Dr. Alexander Sasha Lesson, because Janet also, not only did she produce Stargate to the Cosmos, but she and her husband have been producing radio shows for years and years, since we started in 2012, as have I. And we're really happy to have Ken Johnston, author. We're all three authors. So tonight I'm promoting UFO Secret Space Command by group. And we're going to keep it separate. I mean, I do try to keep up on everything, and I've been listening to all the scuttlebutt among other radio show hosts, but also about a letter and a cease and desist order on using SSP. And Janet, you know what? We've been using Secret Space Command long before 2011, as far as I know. But, you know, people, it doesn't matter, because we can be the way that America wants us to be, with trademarking and copywriting and protecting patents and all of that. But, you know, since we've got on the Internet, I work with a lot of attorneys. And, you know, they would like you to keep doing and fighting and not doing it the way you should, so you can get them to work for you, give them more money, to be quite honest. But, you know, this is what we're talking about lately, is how we're going to play together. So that's why I invited Janet and Ken, because they've both been out there. Now, I would like you to know I've got a story to tell. Janet does, and Ken Johnston does, astronaut Ken Johnston, Dr. Ken Johnston of metaphysics. And I think we're going to blend really well together for the future radio shows, conferences, courses, events, webinars. So we'd like you to remember our names and listen for us. But I have only done Mid-South Con in 2016, so you may not be quite aware of us as much as Richard Dolan, who's really been out there, and he'll be going to the Alien Con, so kudos for him, and Jimmy Church as well. But Ken, you want to tell us how many? You've been to at least 3 conferences, but you've been like an A-lister billing with. Tell us which ones, because Janet, you too. But we're gonna start off here for American Communication Online, okay? And we're gonna have topic panel discussions tonight. And Chant may show up. I may have Janet check on that. But Janet's been instrumental in being an administrator for years, and orchestrating this for people and knowing experiencers. So Ken, back to you. When I met you a year ago at the Mars Anomaly Conference, when
right.
So you spoke about your life and your books, but before that or after that, I guess it would be after that, since 2017, didn't you meet Janet again at another con, at the UFO Con?
You're talking about Janet Lesson?
Yeah.
Yeah. I met them at Contact in the Desert in 2014, I believe. I've actually been on 14 different programs ever since, we're going back almost 10 years. I was at the National Press Conference and put the word out around the world back. Oh, God.
I didn't know you were there, Ken. You never told me.
Yeah.
Did you?
Well, you've not read my autobiography, have you?
I guess I haven't seen one. Did you send me I asked you to send me a new one. I'm sorry, Janet. I'm sorry, but I'll get all that. We're going to do this after this show. I didn't know for sure who was going to show up, so I got plenty of time to get all the updated bio and pictures. I'm working on it. So if you didn't send it to me, I guess I didn't read it good. All right, fill us in, because this is to just get this tonight's, folks, is just to get back acquainted with Janet and myself and, of course, Ken Johnson. So, Ken, all right, take us back in time. And then, you know, some people may or may not know the skinny of your life, and we'll be able to put up pages about it in books. But let's go back. How many conferences? So, Contact in the Desert in 2014. That's the first time you met Janet Carroll Lesson.
Yes, I've been on Contact in the Desert way back when it was in the desert with Richard C. Hoagland back in whatever years, decades it was back there. In reality, I guess the people might want to know that I started off with working as NASA with Grumman back in 1966, and then became one of the 4 civilian astronauts, and then helped do the testing, the vacuum chambers, and training the astronauts how to fly it. And then I went to work once we landed on the moon. Grumman laid off 30,000 of us, and I went over to the Lunar Receiving Laboratory and became the director of the Data and Photo Control Department, which meant that I had direct access of all the the pictures, the film, and all the data that was being sent back by the astronauts, as well as what they brought back and the samples as well. So once we were supposed to go all the way through at Apollo 20, and we stopped at Apollo 17, and that's whenever the Lunar Receiving Laboratory started laying some of us off there. I went over to the ILC Corporation that builds the Apollo space suits, and was one of the test engineers on that project, and went to work on the Skylab. And after we got the Skylab going good, I actually, after we reached the point of about, what would that be, 1980, about 1980, I decided it was time to get out of all of the, you get laid off about every 4 years, because that's when contractors' contracts would end and you'd have to start over with a new one. So I went to work up in Denver, Colorado with Martin Marietta Corporation on the Peacekeeper. By the way, you know how you keep peace in the world? You have a good idea about that? If you got the biggest bomb...
I didn't know that could happen.
No, if you have the biggest bombs and the biggest rockets, that probably is the way you supposedly control the world. At any rate, so after we had the Apollo, space shuttle disaster that blew up on launch, then I went to work for the Boeing company in Seattle, Washington, and became a flight instructor for the Boeing 737s, and I put 14 years in there, and they offered us an early retirement because of the way the company was going back there. So in the meantime, I wound up listening to the radio and the programs, and I was listening to, we had a group at Boeing, we called ourselves the Majestic 12, of course. There were 12 of us. We would send messages in the inter-office mail envelopes. We didn't have cell phones and be able to send things back and forth like that, so we would keep track, and one of the guys contacted me. He says, "Hey, Ken, Richard C. Hogan," which we'd all listened to it, is going to be giving a program in Seattle at the big tower, and he says, "Why don't you go?" So I put together a little story and told Richard Hogan them that I had my own records and had been keeping all the film and pictures and records that I'd kept on myself. And I showed up, went in the front door, and there was a lady sitting there. I was getting ready to buy my ticket, and I said, "Oh, would you give Mr. Hogan this letter of introduction?" She looks at it, and I honestly, I swear, it looked like her hand started. She says, "You're who we've been looking for." And I said, "Uh-oh, I'm in trouble now." So Mr. Hogan came out, and he spoke to me for 2 minutes. He says, "Get down on the front row. We're going to get together in this." So that evening, we talked, and he made arrangements for 6 of his team to come over to my house. And I had a big double-door vault that I'd kept all this stuff in for safety, and I had opened it up, and they started going through looking at things, and they were just going wild, because they've been seeing generation after generation after generation copies of a lot of the pictures and things that showed things on the moon and the backside of the moon. And here they were looking at the originals, and these guys just went absolutely berserk. In fact, my wife was looking at one of the pictures of one of the astronauts' visor, and there was a perfect picture of one of those spacecraft hovering up above the astronauts that were sitting there on the moon. So that kind of gets you up to 1995. 1995. Richard Hogan says, "We've got to get you in front of the national press and get you public, or else you could have an car accident, or get bumped off." And unfortunately, we've had a lot of people who have died for one reason or another that were supposedly coming forward with information. So that has been the way it's worked out very good for me. And like I say, I went to a lot of conferences back in those days, and as local and as well as on the very first Contact in the Desert one that they had out. And I can't remember the name of the little place out in the desert, but that's where it got its name.
Well, when were you in New York? Because my husband worked directly for NASA, but his father worked for Grumman with you in Houston, and from Houston he went to Long Island, New York. Grumman was out there. I went out there, and I went out there in '68. So he must have transferred out of NASA before you did with Grumman.
No.
But you did go to New York because you worked with Grumman.
Yeah. Guess what? You were there in 1968. I got on the moon in 1966. 1967, I went to Bethpage, Long Island with Grumman, where I was one of the test conductors of the lunar modules that were going through the assembly line. And I was there for like 3 months and working 14 and 16 hours a day to try to meet John F. Kennedy's request that we go to the moon and return, before the decade was out. And so I was there in
Bethpage, Long Island?
Yeah, Bethpage, Long Island.
Working for Grumman. Yeah. We've crossed paths too many times. This is nuts, folks, but it's a small planet. Not everybody gets to work around this type of work, and so it's very pleasing to. I wanted to ask you that for sure because it was a fun time, but I didn't understand the transfer from NASA. But maybe he didn't have a choice, or maybe he saw the writing on the wall. I don't know, but he did go up to there. And okay, well that's good. So we've got that established. But I never ran across you that I could remember, other than you did go to 2001 Space Odyssey at the Windsor Theater, right? When I did, we were only special people got to come with the astronauts and the wives.
Yep.
The showing of 2001 Space Odyssey.
Absolutely.
And you went to that too, didn't you?
I was up on the first, second, or third row, right in the very front. You bet.
Wow, I wasn't up that close. I was back maybe 14. I was probably on row 14. I was in the middle, but I wasn't up totally. You were up there with the big shots.
Well, I was a little shot with big shot. How's that?
Well, this is pretty cool. Well, Janet, I think that there was a reason that you and Karen wanted us all to get together, and that's why I was trying to get him to tell us when he met you.
Did you unmute me? Am I unmuted now?
You are unmuted. You were never muted.
Oh, I thought I heard you mute me. Okay. Okay, I've been listening. That was very interesting. I got a call from somebody that wants to call into the show. Are we taking calls tonight?
Well, is it Chant Hannah or somebody that knows that we're doing this show?
Yeah, it's somebody else that is in the Secret Space program. They just called me while you were talking to Ken.
Well, no, tonight, maybe at the last hour, but I've got to get I want to get the topics separated before we start taking this on as a bona fide show every 2 hours, or taking on new people, because right now I got to get you handled. Yeah, we're not. I don't have you two qualified yet. Tonight, I made you and Ken room, and I was going to have Chant because she was working with Jan Harzan, who is the president. He was former IBM, Ken, right?
Well, I'll just text the guy the phone number, and you can. I'll tell him you're going to do it. Tell him
in the last 30 minutes, maybe. But I don't know that I want to introduce new people because I've got to screen them first. And I've got to know their story,
you want
folks.
To ask a question or something. Anyway,
okay.
Okay, so what
we can do it the last hour.
What's the focus today?
So basically, I want to get alienology and ufology, the chronology, and our topics, levels, timelines, and metaphysics, because there's a lot of the we threw the looking glass on the floor, and we broke it up before we came here, and we've given people the different pieces, sort of like Thoth did, and they threw pieces. They used to throw pieces at everybody all over the universe, So what's going on, folks, is I'm separating ace folk life from reality, meaning if it's not folk life, what is it? And Dr. Lesson, being an anthropologist, we were at University of Kentucky. Anthropology, they have they have folklore, folk life. And so what I was learning in academia is we have to separate. It's like fact from fiction, but really everything is energy and everything comes from somewhere. And every story that we could say has probably already been said over and over and over again. So we can get as deep. What I say is as far down the rabbit hole or down the rabbit hole or up the food chain. How's that? So I've said that before. But Ken Johnston
go ahead.
has a piece in between on this chronological timeline, and he understands the Mandela effect, and so does Janet. So I want to get us on this UFO Secret Space. There's this thing going on between Corey Good and copywriting SSP, or Secret Space. And I haven't seen the letter, but I heard about it on the RichardDolanMembers.com YouTube. And also, they're wanting to, do the same thing we're doing. There's nothing different than we're all looking at the old guys, which Ken and I and Janet are. We were working for the government long. Well, you could be a young soul, but I think you're a very old soul. But with us, the three of us, we've been carrying part of the message. Now, what we need to do is put ours together and then see how other people's fit with ours, if you guys out there don't mind, with this UFO Secret Space Command, because we're actually have the UFO Secret Space Group, and I would like to say that none of us are going to say, well, we're all ambassadors for the universe, because each one of us is, but a lot of people don't like that grandstanding. So I thought, Ken, you're the perfect 3D person to say, look, this stuff was real. I know who I am. I worked at NASA, and here's the years. And then I can help in those same years. And then Janet partially has her star, Johnson Atoll, out in Hawaii. But we're going to put us together for a reason. There is a reason for this. And then we can bring in other people's stories, because a lot of people out there are getting really, really interested, but also really, really confused. So we're going to make it as real for you as possible, and there was a lot of investigators before us. And Ken, you mentioned Majestic 12. Now, I had that manual on my in my possession, let me put it that way. And what's so funny is it had the red ink and the black ink, and I've seen Linda Moulton Howell with that. Did you see the Majestic 12 paper or manual?
No, I didn't get to see the manual. There were the group of us there at Boeing did. Some of them were on secret projects, and they had just enough to make it a fun thing to call ourselves the Majestic 12.
Okay, gotcha.
I've learned a lot since then.
Okay. Well, see, this is the thing that happens, and that's okay. And Janet, you want to explain a little bit about the Mandela effect? Because Janet has been with me for so many years, folks. If you don't know who she is the producer of the Stargate to the Cosmos event that got us started here in 2012. If you guys remember, it was a very important year, and we thought it was going to be a different wave of level of existence and mentality, one might say, in 12/21/12. But Janet, the Mandela effect came about from the Dragon Con, I believe, out in Atlanta, but in 2011, and moved forward about them talking about it. And a guy came up named Shadow and mentioned it to the woman. And anyway, it took off, the name Mandela effect, because a lot of people thought the same thing about Nelson Mandela, that he had died in prison and he was still alive. So this is what Janet and me and Ken are about. So, Janet, explain. Can you sort of say, how each person has their own timeline and the Mandela effect? Can you, and Ken can chime in on that too.
Well, apparently there's many timelines that converge and move across one another. So you can experience something and actually shift timelines, and then you experience the same thing differently. So some of the examples are that Nelson Mandela, and a lot of people remember he died in, I don't know what year it was, 68, and their big funeral. And then other people remember he died in whatever the real year was. So they called the Mandela, not Mandala. Mandala is a beautiful thing that you draw in the sand. A bunch of
Nelson Mandela versus Mandala.
Nelson Mandela. And I've been corrected on that one. From my perspective, when I was 4, I was taken on board the mothership and then when I was on it, I was my eternal self, and I was shown 24 multiverses, variables on the theme, directions that one could go, and it's like driving down a superhighway, and you have all these lanes, and if you want to shift lanes, you move over and you take the exit. You go into another timeline. So we're dealing with a lot of different timelines, a lot of different variables on the same thing. So there's a timeline where, Hitler didn't go to South America and stayed ruling, and, and they made a TV series about that called The High, it's on Amazon. What's it called? The High something. Anyway, they have this alternative Nazi universe, and they made it a weekly series, and it's been on for a couple of years. Anyway, that's basically what it is. There's all these variables on the theme, and actually Robert Heinlein, his final book was on that. What was it called? The Mark of the Beast. So in the final book, Heinlein was traveling through time and space in a spaceship, and he would encounter the people from The Wizard of Oz, and all the books that were written. We thought they were all fiction, but he was actually encountering all these characters. So, there's a lot of people that have touched on this concept, even without having the awareness of Nelson Mandela's phenomenon. So what happens is sometimes we get together and we share a story, and people have different variations of the same story, and we go, well, wait a minute, this is how it happened, that's how it happened. And some people say, well, maybe that's just memory, your guys are remembering things different. Well, so that's part of it, actually. There's as many universes as there are people. We all remember things slightly different. We have a different perspective. We were standing in the room differently. We were doing things differently. So you have that effect, and you have the Mandela effect as well. So that's what we were doing. I hear all this background noise.
Is that better?
Are you there?
I'm making some of the noise.
Yeah.
I apologize for that. I had to go in the other room with my finger over the speaker here and ask my wife to turn the TV down.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was hearing that, and then I heard somebody cough, and then it sounded like somebody closed their microwave. My husband always does that. He opens his microwave and heats his coffee up, and he doesn't realize that people can hear him.
Then maybe it wasn't dreaming.
Yeah. So is that what you're asking about?
Yeah.
That's is a variable on the timelines, and so and I'm learning about that still because I experience it and then get blown away by it, and so I'm learning to let go. Instead of getting wrapped up, a lot of people get wrapped up in the details, and they get all screwed up because they start arguing the semantics, so to speak. They start arguing the details of a timeline. But what's really going on is that, we're just in this here and now, and we're in this consensus reality, those who gather together in a room, and that kind of exists for as long as we manufacture it together, and when we walk away, something else takes its place. So we're the ones that are all creating reality. So with that in mind, you can be careful what you think. Thoughts are deeds. We are manifesting them. We are in a different space and time where we're manifesting a lot faster than ever before. That's the main reason that the extraterrestrials love humans, is that we can bring the non-material down into physicality. We can bring heaven to earth. We can manifest things. We're creative. A lot of the species are in a very narrow perspective, and they can't, imagine much or create much anymore. But we're very creative. We're still creative, and let's hope that never changes, because that's one of our biggest assets to how we contribute to the universe. Does that make sense?
It does to me.
Okay. I don't know where TJ is. TJ, are you there?
Have we lost TJ? If we did, she'll come back on. I can pick up with that if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Janet.
Go ahead, yes.
Since more of this information is starting to be made public, some of us can start taking a look back at our lives and how we wound up where we are and the experiences we've had. And in my particular case, my dad was killed 2 months after I was born in 1942 as a pilot during World War II. And then my mother married a Marine captain, and he was killed once he got back to the States due to circumstances. So I'm thinking that's kind of set the timeline in taking a look at the offspring. And my brother, Dr. A.R. Johnston, who wound up working in the design and development of the big vacuum chambers and things with NASA. Our brother in between us, he wound up being killed on a school hayride, so that just left the older and the younger, myself. And I've been going back looking over my life and history and finding that there are gaps of time that I wonder really what took place in them, because, for instance, like my mother and them were looking for me for like 6 hours or so, and they found me. This was when I was like 7 years old, inside the dirty clothes hamper, underneath all the clothes that are inside the dirty clothes hamper. Now, did I stay in there for like 6 or 7 hours? And further on down the line, there are other cases where the timelines...
Wait. What happened? Did you ever find out? Were you taken and returned underneath the dirty clothes? Did you?
I'm getting to that.
Happened?
Give me time.
Okay,
that's
go
what
ahead.
I'm going to tell you.
I thought you were just going to leave us with that one hanging. I wasn't going to let that one go. Okay, so
continue
your story.
See, all of this stuff is now coming out, and thanks to Dr. Sasha Lessin getting into the hypnotic regression and getting into some of the area my memories and things had been wiped somewhat clean, but with the right technique and abilities of people like Sasha, we can get into that. And that's what we're starting to discover, is that some of these things put me in the right place, and I like to use it this way, right place at the right time to do the right thing. And that was, who was that, the astronaut, the very first one we put into a space, Alan B. Shepard. I think he was the one who said that. Anyway, so... From that, I've been going back and kind of looking over the yearbooks and records and things I've had and files. I'm a pack rat, and thank God I am a pack rat, because otherwise we wouldn't have had the archive that I saved from NASA, as well as able to go back and look at these things that took place in my life and look for the places where all of a sudden there's this gap in time. And that's been within the last year and a half, 2 years, folks, that I'm now coming to grips with the facts that I have been tapped and pulled in by extraterrestrials and been set in motion to be at a certain place for certain events. And that's kind of when I wrote my second book, which is The Regression of NASA Whistleblower. My wife was terrified that I was going to come forward with the information that came out because of credibility. Now, with everything else that's happened, then I've had documents, records, and things, for instance, like a certificate over 3,000 hours as a spacecraft pilot in the vacuum chambers and all that. That's credibility. But when you start talking about things that the average person, they're going to poo-poo in, they can't accept it unless they themselves have been experienced or have come in contact with people who they can trust. So now I'm at the point of coming forward with the information that Dr. Lessin has been digging out, and that has been triggered thoughts of missing time, and still trying to maintain the credibility. As I said, there's 2 books out already, and the third one is dealing with more of the regression and actually the events and things that I took place on before we got to the moon and before we've gotten on Mars. And those things, that's the hardest thing, I think, for you, Janet, and TJ, and that is to be able to realize that all of this stuff has to be real, or we wouldn't have the kind of memories and connections. And that's the other thing. I'm running into people like Corey Good and Andrew Bashago and things. That's according to the records, I ran into them on Mars. Now, wow, that is something hard for me to kind of come to grips with and be willing to accept the fact that I've been a part of the secret space program and didn't even know it. So that kind of brings you up to where I'm at.
Well, I'm doing a lot of that same thing, is that what really has been going on. So it seems like we're triggering each other and helping us to wake up and activate and realize what's really going on. So I'm interviewing, I have about 25 people I've been interviewing that are in the secret space program. And I bring them together on the same show, and sometimes they're just going, "Oh my God!" And as somebody says something, the other person gets activated and they remember something. So it's really a phenomenal experience.
It's like this is a good example, I think, Janet, and that is, since I was the director of the Data and Photo Control Department at the Lunar Receiving Laboratory, and I was told to throw away all but one set of all the pictures and films and documents that I had, and I kind of protested a lot. the guy that my director, ILC
right.
company there, told me I had to do it. And I said, well, why don't we donate them to some of the universities, places that we've been working with? And he said, no, get rid of all but one. So, and he said, finally, I bugged him down, and he finally said, I don't care what you do, just get rid of all but one set. And I said, okay. So I put one set in the big filing cabinet. The other set I put into a duffel bag that I took out to my car that night when I had to work the second shift. And not being able to prove that event stuff happened comes down the line that here, my folks forgive me, but I have auto accidents and I have a dropout. I'm trying to think of the name of the woman who was looking in the trash there at the receiving level and found a bunch of the pictures, and she pulled them out and kept them.
Now, here's another clue, Ken. I know when you were walking on the moon, I was in the control. Got to go in the control room before we started, but the night that they were walking on the moon, and my husband was in charge of the typing pool for NASA, not Grumman, not TRW. You understand what I'm saying? The only typing pool, and my husband was the boss, or the supervisor. All the girls behind the typewriters, folks, we didn't have computers at that extent. And he called me up from where we were living in Red Bluff and zoomed over in my Jag XK convertible that night and got to go up in there and listen to I didn't understand what he wanted. Because it was the reason he wanted me to hear this, folks, is they were talking about UFOs, okay? And he was told to delete it, but he snuck a call for me. And now, to this day, knowing my husband and how we are, and with clearances and all that stuff, but nobody told us about that stuff. We were kids and put in hard copy, and we were right out of high school, and he just happened to have 5 scholarships. It was to keep him out of the Vietnam War. But this is only one incident in 3D now. This is not made up. And, I could swear on a Bible what I heard and what he did. He let me hear it, and I said, why do you let me listen to it? All the women were sitting there with their eyes that were working on that shift. I think they had extra pay and all that. But I knew something happened, but, I was like 16 years old. I looked very mature for my age, but I already had ET involvement. So he knew I was connected psychically, and he was always impressed with my psychic abilities and my belief in extraterrestrials, angels for Christians, if you will, extraterrestrials or other beings, if you will. So when I heard what they said, and they're talking, he had to tell me they're talking about flying saucers, and then I'll put the headset back on and listen one more time very intently. But at first, it was just like, what it sounded like. Remember, Ken, what it sounded like between, I guess, in the control room. I used to know every names, but it back and forth, it would be, it's just, and so it doesn't. It's not very impressive, but I was called up and I got to hear, and so here's the kicker. They told him, Steve and Lee Parrish, to get rid of that. They had to get rid of it. They're the transcribing and listening to tapes and transcribing, and they had to get rid of. It's like I couldn't believe it. So that it was taped and the transcribing, and they were typing it up.
I think a good
you were
example
told to get
of that,
rid of parts too.
Well, in part one, for instance, Neil Armstrong requested the channel to the medical officer at the Mission Control Center, and it was at that point where the director at the Mission Control, he switched everybody else in the room off and just left the one channel open for talking to the medical officer and to the mission director. And it's when Neil says, they're here, they're on the edge of the crater, they're watching us. And this was recorded. Now, the good part about it is we had some ham radio operators around the world, some of them that were actually tuned in on the right frequency, and they had recorded the same thing. So that got kind of proved way down the line, but it's been shut down so many times, it's made it difficult for those of us that were close to it or involved in it and have firsthand information of it to prove that what we're saying is true. And so we can actually get those that Well, that's the problem. I've outlived most all of them. You called us old folks. I got to throw this in real quick. I may be 77, but then again, I'm going to live to 180, so that still makes me fairly young, okay? So I'm not going to reprogram my brain. You don't want to program your body and your brain that it says, okay, I'm 68, I'm going to die. Well, you will. So I didn't play that game. I'm playing my game.
Well, that's good.
Right.
And we're going to have shows on that. We're going to have Ira Pastor with BioQuark. He wants to come
Good.
and talk about longevity. He's got videos and all kinds of things. So we'll get Ira Pastor to talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, people like The Secret. And, there's all kinds of things you can use out there. But, yes, we are in charge of what comes out of our mouth and what program. And then I want to talk about the Akashic field and going through it and death and dying, but we can do that another day. But today it has a part of that. Go ahead.
You promised you were going to tell the story about how you ended up in the bottom of the clothes basket, and I'm reminding you, you've got to finish that.
Okay, Ken, missing time.
Yep.
Go ahead. What happened to that?
Yep. Okay. Well, about the same time, we had tremendous thunderstorms going on in the panhandle of Texas, out where we lived with the stepdad, T.C. Ray, and our neighbor was about a mile and a half away, closest neighbor, called, and by the way, we even had a phone that hung on the wall. It had the little mouthpiece in the box and a crank on the side, and we cranked it, and the woman that was handling the building where she take the little cables and punch in from one and take your cable and punch into the other. So that's how we got the message from the neighbor. He said, boy, there was some lightning struck just out past your house on the other side of the road. It was tremendous. Did you guys see it? And so my brother, who was 5 years older than me, AR, Dr. A.R. Johnston, I mentioned earlier, and my brother Jimmy, only 17 months old, we grabbed our galoshes and went up across the dirty, muddy road through the barbed wire fence and went about 50 yards into the field of maize, grain. And in that area, it was swirled down at what we can now call crop circles, but that then was, good grief, we were talking about 1947, maybe 1948. Anyway, when you're the littlest one of the group, you've got to do everything you can to keep up with the big one. Well, AR's the oldest, so he doesn't have to do anything. He's just going to take his time. And Jimmy, on the other hand, he wasn't interested in chasing. So I outran him, and I got to the circle area first. And on the far side, this all ties together, so give me time here. On the other side of the circle area was this big bird, and nowadays I know it was a whooping crane. At least that's what I thought it was. And it's standing over there. They can stand up to 4 feet tall, mind you. They're still alive today, these birds. It turned its head, looked at me, turned its head back forward, took about 3 steps, opened its wing, flapped its wings once, went up and poof, disappeared. Now, during the regression, as I told this to Dr. Lesson, he said, he had me, he says, go back and look at the bird, see what it's doing. Look at its feathers. What can you see? And I said, it like the zipper dropped the covering, and it was this gray-looking little kid, and it took 2 steps and beamed up, zapped up. So that was when I was only like 6 years old, if that was 5 or 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my first contact. Now, you asked about the clothes hamper. There were other dreams.
Yeah, clothes hamper?
I'm getting there. There are times between that and the next 4 years where I would find in sleeping and stuff, always dreaming about other planets, other things going on, other beings, and different things like that. And then the same type of thing happened when we'd moved into the town. 560 people. This is a town, I want you to know. Hart, H-A-R-T, Hart, Texas, because the family of Hart, Mr. and Mrs. Hart, and Mr. and Mrs. Ray, the one that founded the whole town. At any rate, we were, that one evening, there was a big horns, a bunch of ruckus going on. We went out and looked behind our house there, close to, about a half a block away from the grade school, middle school, high school. We didn't have it. All one school for that little town. And this craft had landed in this big wide open field between us and the closest elevators. And people had come in with their cars, had hovered around. And so we all went out the back of the house, probably about a football field away from our house. And the doors opened, a ramp came down, and it gets back to the dirty clothes hamper. Anyway, this big, tall guy walks down the ramp,
walks in. There's a shimmering-looking curtain or screen surrounding this craft and where they were, and these people panicked. They took off and ran as fast as they could, and there were just a few people left, and this guy looks over and points at me, curled his finger, and said, "Come over." As I walked over, there was a shimmering of the curtain, parted, and allowed me to walk in, and he motioned me to go up the ramp. I walked up the top, and at the top, inside the craft, there were other people, beings, things leaning over, and they all started applauding, welcoming me in. Then after that, there was a period of time. So after that happened is when I wound up finding myself inside the dirty clothes hamper. So I had been abducted, whatever term you want to use, taken away, trained. That's where a lot of my training came to prepare me to be a solar system ambassador. Now, you mentioned that term earlier. You're aware that NASA had a program called Solar System Ambassadors? Did you know that, TJ?
I heard it from you.
Okay, well, I have my badges, and I copied them. They're on my website that I had from NASA for the Solar System Ambassadors, and we were the ones that would go out to all the different organizations, clubs, and schools and things, and give lectures and talks about what all we were accomplishing in space and all that. Well, that was what I was being trained to be by extraterrestrials, and then I was put back into my timeline. And anytime they take you out, and I'm just talking like this because I know it happened, because it did. Anytime they're taking you out and they put you back in, there could be a gap in a few hours or just a few minutes to put you back in the timeline where you were when you were taken. So here I find myself back in the timeline in the family bathroom, one bathroom in the houses in those days, and in the little door that opens up and a little flip where people would throw all of their dirty clothes in there and be sorted out and laundered later. In fact, we didn't have washing machines and things like that. We went to the local laundromat, worse than that. And here I am underneath all of those things, and I could hear Mother and them hollering for me, looking for me, and they came into the bathroom. That's about the time I opened the door and came out of it. So that kind of tied it all together to get me up to the point of where I was getting a little bit older, accepting duties and jobs and responsibilities. And then there's a whole lot of other events that I've been able to fall out of this old brain of mine, or I should say young brain, that Dr. Lesson's been able to pull out and find out just exactly what took place other times in my life. So that's kind of what put me.
That's great.
I think the thing is, we've been chosen, and I know that TJ, you and Janet and Karen and Brett and Andrew, and for hours you could name off those that we've come in contact with that have helped validate the events and things that took place in our life, that we've been chosen by extraterrestrials. In fact, that's the picked name I have of my book number 3 is Traveling with Extraterrestrials. So you're going to find out a whole lot more as it comes out of the story and we get it out to the public.
Well, let me add another piece to this story, Ken.
Oh, God. So I'm going to say that because as soon as we start getting information out, other people who were involved that we didn't know at the time, now we're finding out we were all involved in it together at the same time. Now, what happened?
These men in black might have been CIA when I was young because I wanted to go to Washington. But here's the deal. Even I don't know who some of these men in black were because they would surround me. They surrounded President Reagan when I met him, but I was very young. And then when I had this in my mind and I skipped channels, the men in black would come up and they could direct me in life. That's where I was going with it. There's the Mandela effect, Nelson Mandela effect, and the conferences and people meeting each other and wanting to know the truth. But what I want to do is have people understand this is very complicated. This isn't just nuts and bolts history. Give me the facts. You can taste, touch, feel it, see it, with your senses, because I'm a natural-born empath and have to spend most of my time away from everything that's going on, and there's a reason for that. But when I was a child, I went over in White Sands just to meet people that would take me up again. From the 4-year-old, I was taken up, and then again in White Sands. But these men in black, Ken, they put me in places so I could be a part of the storyline, but they didn't tell me what my purpose was. So there's not only the past lives, our memories, our dreams, our sacred soul come in with memories, or come back and be a walk-in and re-experience it. There is also the fact that in this world there are people coming and going, and my husband and I didn't know which ones were off planet or on planet. So we have the made, spacecraft of Earth origin, and we have spacecraft not of Earth origin, and the Ebens, and then there's various types of grays. And Linda Moulton Howell has some of the stuff on that. And, there's the tall and the short grays, and they're supposed to be friends, and some say they're not. And there's the ones that look like the little Japanese people, little short people, sort of, more of a tannish gray, or some say yellow. But then I've got so many stories to tell, but I don't necessarily think it has to do with any secret once we say it. It depends on the person listening as to what they want to record, and that was the importance of me, you, and Janet meeting. And I do believe what you said, that they put us in place, or there's, I don't know if you want to say the Mandela effect, or no coincidence, or crossing each other's paths, but just like you and I must have crossed in Bethpage, and we must have crossed at the Windsor, and I must have seen you. But who is directing this stage? This is amazing stuff, if you know what I mean. It's amazing that we're talking right now to me. It's great stuff.
Well, that's
you know what I'm saying?
That's the key, I think, and that is because at this time of and I thought I was the one that dubbed the comment full disclosure about 2 years ago or a little longer, and it's the fact that those of us who are willing to risk everything and come forward with information that we each have a portion of this puzzle. And then the other people out there who have been involved, such as you just said that we're bound to have come across paths. Well, absolutely, I'm sure that we have, and that the ETs that have been involved in manipulating this to get us Earthlings, Homo sapiens sapiens, or whatever you want to call us, to a point where we can deal with the fact that we're not alone. We are not the only intelligent beings in the world. That we are ready now, if we're going to be able to take our place amongst the the EVs and the universe, we need to get our acts together. And I think that's what we've been picked and chosen for, even all the way back to our childhood. In my case, because of I'm sure, things that my fathers had been involved in, and my mother, and it seems to me now, looking back, that I that's why I'm using the term chosen by extraterrestrials, and that's not being arrogant. It's just it's the only way I can answer about how I wound up at the right place with the right stuff to do the right thing.
Well, let me mention this, and I'm going to let Janet weigh in on this, Ken.
Uh-huh.
When you and I met for the first time, probably not the first time, because my mind keeps telling me that's not the first time you saw Ken Johnston. And I don't know what part of me that is, but we all have a soul and a conscience. But let's just say that the time in human form in an avatar 3D body, because getting off into spiritual science makes people get lost. So I'm trying to keep it 3D, folks, boots on the ground. But boots on the ground, meaning human avatar. When William Tompkins and I met, true story, and Dr. Sala was trying to establish that. And Janet said me and him on, I think one of my shows or her shows, because we both syndicate, but the fact was the men that arranged my life for me, there's always been a lot of men, masculine. I had one woman I met, and she had a younger woman with her. I signed a lot of contracts in the government, folks. So, but one of the groups took me to a hangar. I think it was in San Diego, where the Qualcomm Stadium was. But they had me meet him in a hangar. His name was Bill, and the reason I believe it was William Tompkins, because I'm pretty good at memory with faces. I can't remember names if I had to save my life. But I remembered Bill because it was the weirdest situation. Now, let me tell you the reason why. I was just going about, milling about smartly. I was out of the military uniform part, and I was driving a truck, and I didn't realize how much, as you got your clearances here and there, but I was cleared to drive for the U.S. Treasury, carry money, and Microsoft, lots of computer. I was carrying millions of dollars, okay? But when I'd go do airplane or jet parts or secret parts, right, Ken? You know what I'm talking about, going on to the military bases and carrying aircraft parts or whatever. But I met him. But what's so funny is I didn't know it was William Tompkins till some of the stuff started coming out. And I went, oh, my God, that's the guy I met at the hangar, you know, and why? And so I've got all these pieces, Ken, in my life of being sent. These men, even though I was working, you know, I was driving a truck in and out of places because I was cleared, why did they want me to meet this guy, Bill? Now, the reason I think it was William Tompkins was he had the weirdest hair, and he looked like it was the same guy that I remembered from Houston, but I don't know for sure. But I know that they said because of me and him and what we were working on together, which freaked me out because of the ET stuff. And I don't know how – they didn't say, oh, we're Majestic 12 or, you know, the ET or the UFO stuff. They didn't say that, but they said it in a way that I knew what they were talking about. And that can happen, folks. These people either with ESP or they'll say just enough to – they'll take you places and put you places to make a reality or one of these lines happen, Ken. And I need you to know that because you happened, of all the things you could have talked to me about when you met me this last time with Janet and May, was you had his book. And then Janet wound up being with him and pushing his wheelchair just a month or two behind. So, Janet, go ahead and put your piece in on the UFO Secret Space or William Tompkins story in there because we all know he liked women. You want to tell us first?
TJ, hang on to your knickers because I've had a great contact with William Bill Tompkins. Stand by.
Good. So we'll share our stories. So I was walking at Contact in the desert, and I decided to go the other direction, coming back from the bathroom, and I ran into this woman who was her father was Bill Tompkins' boss. And he had just come out with Selected by Extraterrestrials, and he started making all these YouTubes. And thank God he did because he didn't have much time with us. You know, he came out full disclosure for Bill Tompkins, and then he was gone the following later that year. So I said to Sasha, I said we have to go to the MUFON conference in Vegas because we're supposed to hang out with Bill Tompkins, which you know. It's really hard to hang out with these people because they're swamped by all these people. But I just followed my guidance, and so I signed up for it and got our plane tickets, and I signed up for a table when I was sharing a table with Misa Johnston. And when I arrived and I go, well, I don't know how this is going to happen, but when I arrived at the conference and I went to find my table, it was right across from Bill Tompkins. I went, it was scored. See, the ETs always help me. It's really amazing. You know, when I'm supposed to do something, I'm working for them, that it all falls into place. So there I was, right across from him, and I was helping him and his wife. Now, his wife was the one in the wheelchair. Bill Tompkins was supposed to be across the casinos, the big facility, and these he had all these teeny boppers around him. That's the best way to describe it. It's like he was a rock star. And everybody discovered Bill Tompkins, and they wanted to talk to him, and they wanted to take pictures with him, and so I was looking at the watch because I was, going to go over and be at this panel, and I went over to him and I said, Bill, you got to go right now. You're not going to make it. You're going to miss your own panel. So they got his wife in. So I helped. I said, look, fans, he'll be back after an hour and a half, and you can get your autograph sent. He's got to go now. So, but I was expecting somebody from the conference to come over and get him and say, hey, Bill, but no, nobody did. So I rescued him, put his wife in the chair. I was pushing his wife, and then I looked over, and there was a point where we were really running late, so I had to start running with her, pushing her, and he's running. He's 93, 94 years old, and he's running. He's keeping up with me, and he's not winded at all. I said, Bill, are you okay? He said, oh, yeah, I'm fine. Let's get going. So I had a wonderful time with Bill. 2 weeks later, he was dead. The official story was he fell and hit his head, and then apparently he recovered, or he was up from hitting his head, and then he fell again, and then he was gone. So rushed to hospital and died. So that's all I know about Bill. But he, his name is Bill Tompkins. My father's name is Bill Thompson. Very close in name. They're both World War II vets. And he had, Bill Tompkins had this photographic memory. That's why he was selected by extraterrestrials. And so that's one thing I'd like to talk about is what abilities do we have? Why do they select us? And apparently when you're able to communicate telepathically with extraterrestrials, that's a special ability. Now, are we born with those? A lot of us are genetically manipulated, and this is what I'm finding out in my research, and they can go down to the semen and egg level, genetically alter us, and then plant us into our mother's wombs. What was her name? Cynthia Crawford was genetically altered, sperm and egg, maybe the zygote, and then she was put into her mother's womb alongside her sister. So they were twins, but she was outside the uterus and the other twin was inside the uterus. And they weren't very compatible when there was a transplant needed. They were not genetically compatible. So there's a phenomenon that's coming out when we interview these secret space programs, super soldiers, and apparently there are several million of them. So, it's likely that since we're traveling in the same circles, we're going to reconnect. And for some reason, they're allowing us to remember. So we're having this phenomenon where we reconnect with somebody from the program, and we're getting all these ahas, and I remember this and I remember that. So the last couple of days, I've witnessed Ken and TJ going, oh, I remember this, oh, and then that. So it's very exciting when you get this validation.
Well, it's working in this reality versus memories versus past lives, near death, out of body. And just a New Age is getting a bad rap for some of the things that it taught us. And you can take it through all the, go back to Ahura Mazda if you want to, or, Zarathustra or Thoth or whoever, or all of the above. World religions, it depends on each person's individual perceptions. And some of them, the religious values are what they have, and that's fine. America was, the thrust of where we are now was based on it has historical value. So, we're supposed to be here now, enjoy being here in our avatars, our vehicles, our bodies. And still, most of us, even those that have no world religion, folks, and some people, including Richard Dolan, historically, we as historians, and I've been one of those a very long time, and with the Ace Folklife, at least from 2003, with the Smithsonian and learning to talk to people and listen to people. And I got sent in Kentucky, and I was actually looking for Bigfoot, not UFOs, people seeing UFOs more over my house and telling me. And but the Yeti that was part of the history and in my life, and Tommy Oxblood was one of those with my husband in memory form. And to this day, their energy, the way they walk and talk, and Tom and Tommy at one point in their life reminded me of that. And the highest gold personages where I would be shown where to go, I've been guided, would be gold dust or a gold light. And I don't want to, don't start splitting hairs over what I'm saying. Just try to get the message. The message was for me, because people haven't even shared most of this stuff in detail. So the fact is that we are all unique. We're all important. Nobody's more important than the other. You step aside of your ego to be humble. But the fact is, each one of us has something that is very, very similar. And I like the fact that William or Bill or whoever was guiding him for his book, didn't you say, well, Ken, did he say chosen in his title?
Selected by extraterrestrials.
Yep.
selected by extraterrestrials.
Okay. Well, Tom and I were told we were chosen before we were born, and that was pretty hard to handle. The only thing that saved me was my religious upbringing and seeing billboards that said, I knew you before you were born, and there was a little baby almost fully developed in the womb, and I'd had that and seen that with my daughter. So I had experienced babies coming out of me and, in a little cocoon or, having to break the water like you see little animals or kittens or dogs come out. You come out in this little thing and boop, if somebody gets to come out of your tummy anyway, and when they come out, a lot of the water breaks and the skin comes off of you. But I realized that with my experiences, I'm putting together my own story, and I would suggest each person do that. Now, tonight we've got UFO Secret Space Command topics, levels, timelines, and metaphysics, because a lot of the metaphysicians are magicians, and we're looking at a lot of people around the world that don't really believe in religions or metaphysics or occult wisdom. But cosmology, I have a book called Knowing Cosmology out there, but it would be very helpful to a lot of people reading about cosmology, and metaphysics is in cosmology. So think about it. We've got a lot of topics. Now, I want to mention that the reason I asked Ken and Janet is because I don't know too many people on the planet that are kindred spirits that can talk about the UFO Secret Space Command, which is probably different for Karen and Janet and Ken and Brett Cullen Shepard and even Matteo Ionio over in Italy, because he look at the photos on Mars. But there's something going on, and I can tell you that as the algorithms follow us, I want to get into how AI follows us as well, those beings that have souls and those that don't. And please listen to Linda Moulton Howell, listen to Richard Dolan, listen and form your own opinion, because I've only got a few people that I trust to at least be good journalists, meaning fact-finding, and that they cite why they think the way they do. And a lot of authors and journalists and investigators and researchers that I've known in the past, they didn't know me, and it's going to be interesting to see how I am coming into play now. I waited until President Bush passed, and there's a story and a reason for that, and I'll have to get into the details. But now I feel much freer because I carry my husband's UFO off-planet story and us working with the command off-planet and working with the Andromeda Galaxy, but also working in the various universes, multiverse, and the 7 universes. So when working in one's physical reality, it's hard because it's like the Yellow Book or Tom and I was using computers before there were computers. Tom and I was using holograms before there were holograms. Tom and I were seeing beings and people in different types before other people. And then we were so compartmentalized that we didn't understand except the Reagan era. And I'm going to call the UFO Secret Space Program that we need topics. And we need alienology separate in the UFO Secret Space Command, because that's what I'm doing, is I'm establishing those that study aliens separate from those that study UFOs in historical value or in history, that the books that may be in the future, because people that study the aliens they may study the vehicles, they may not. But we've been so limited. I remember, Janet, you and Ken probably do, when we didn't have ufology. And it was a big deal. I went through that in 2000-something till 2006. And I was on the road doing the government's bidding, and I went out to Roswell to talk to Glenn Dennis. And we had to have training on the planet, and we didn't have enough of the computer simulations. And they put me in place in Oklahoma. They put my daughter in place in Oklahoma when we were training. And then we went out in the gaming. A lot of people don't know the deep history of their country or in AI or in computers. But we were going around, and not only were we taking stuff in and out, not in uniform, because most of the time we worked out of uniform, but having people, and Ken, you can appreciate this being a pilot. You know how they have to train, but they have simulations? We had desktop simulations in Oklahoma, and aren't you from that area? Because I was part of that, so was my daughter. But people, you can't talk about that stuff. It's not secret or clear. It's just who cares? So this makes what you and I are doing important. You're in Oklahoma, and where did you go to any flying commands or anything? Because we needed pilots, and part of my job was to make sure the kids got trained. Guess what? Star Wars and Stargate and all that was far, mainly Star Wars. Going around and putting those games and using, being involved with your hands and feet and flying those spacecraft. Go ahead.
I remember that, actually going through and doing that test.
You did? See?
I did.
You remember? And how many times did your plane fall? And you were like, wait a minute, I want another turn, and everything goes dead. It's very embarrassing.
Yep.
But, you have to pass a test sooner or later before you get to go out and do the deal. But we were training people around the country. I've got so many little Mandela lines are crossing, Ken, that I want to start connecting the dots to make it understood that we've been training people on this planet a long time. Now, Ken, I don't know if you're going to call yourself an extraterrestrial, but I call everybody, because if you go out there and everybody that's on this little bitty dot, they're like fleas on the ticks, or ticks on a dog. We're on spacecraft Earth. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely do, and I totally agree. We are offsprings of extraterrestrials, and therefore we are ETs here on this planet Earth. But can I jump in here for a little bit? I got to go back, because you guys are tying things together for me, and I'm having a blast. Recall. I think Jan talked about her memory. I had a total recall, 100% recall. In third grade, the teacher, for instance, we had the homework, supposed to read a story, and the teacher says, okay, who wants to tell us about the story last night? And I held up my hand, and she says, fine. So I walked up in front of the classroom, and she went, and she starts making her notes, and I start off, once upon a time, long, long ago, blah, 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 blah. She said, I didn't say read it, I said tell it. I said, I am telling it. So I'm saying that's those very much in common with those of us that I think have been chosen, picked, taken, used, what have you, at the time when we had those skills and those abilities. So, but I've lost that. I hate to say that, and I'm striving hard to get the gray matter to working better. One of the other things is when I left NASA and started my own little company, that went good for about a year and a half, and then I came back to NASA. They were looking for regular astronauts to go in the Skylab program, and then the shuttle program, I should say. And then when I came back to work, I went to work at TRW, where Bill Tompkins was a star, I should say, for TRW. And very interesting that he and I did get to speak a couple of months before he passed, very short with his wife there, so I couldn't go into much detail about it. Ask him, did you and a couple of about three other guys, meet what did he call them? Not Anunnaki, the extraterrestrial women that worked to help.
Are you talking about? We have Nordic women. Yes. That's all we worked with. That's all. And my husband was over the grill. The Vril.
Vril. B-R-I. Yeah. The girls with the long hair, which was their magical powers.
I got to go to one of their special little get-togethers where she kind of enjoyed being with all of us guys. Anyway, enough said there.
Well, okay, so let's look at that 1 second here, because this is what Bill kept going round and round in his book, Selected by Extraterrestrials. Now, we're talking the 60s.
Well, I haven't read his book, so just ask me innocently.
Wait. Okay, innocently, and I won't go into any kind of dirty details, but in the 60s, there were a lot of love-ins, and there was a period of kind of great celebration sexually. Very
that's
loose.
Tactful.
Very
that works.
loose. Very loose. And
nice
that's one of the things that Bill Tompkins talked about. They had all these, they were basically orgies, sexual orgies, and there may have been a lot of drugs, sex, drug, and rock and roll. So, but I'm wondering, since these girls like to be with everybody, if there was something that they were embarking to the people they were with, because they were not human; these were extraterrestrials.
And this being chosen by extraterrestrials.
Got anything from being?
I was called in as a young woman consultant, but if you're leading to see, back then I wouldn't do any. I've never been promiscuous ever. It doesn't matter if I'm ET, on planet, off planet.
We're talking about these girls that
I didn't read his book, and I don't read. I know about some stuff during that period because I was in Houston. So if it happened around Houston and NASA, I didn't read his book. Thank goodness. No, and the reason is, now you told me to, and that I needed to, but at the same time, there was a lot of stuff probably in the book that I didn't want to. How can I say this? I wanted to use my part of my reality with what I experienced. So, because remember, Janet and Bill, I've written 30 or 40 books, but I didn't put my on-planet, boots on the ground life like I'm talking to you now with
I wanted to throw, and you've taken the ball way off where it was at.
All right, on the people, let me ask Ken.
Let me ask Ken. No, I had a question. I'm waiting for Ken to answer. What I asked him was, because you and Bill were in these orgies with these extraterrestrial women. And I've heard about this at Penn State. This is not the first time I've heard about these things that were going on in those days. Okay, I wasn't born yesterday. I'm aware of it. Okay? I wanted to know, since you were intimate with these extraterrestrials, did you get something from them? Do you think they were changing you in some way, further? I'm going to imagine it. Further genetically altering you, implanting ideas into you so you would take it to accelerate humanity? Or is there anything like that or akin to that happened when you were engaged with these?
Well, I feel almost disappointed. I almost feel disappointed because I was only invited once. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway, but just a minute. I made a note here. Because I can't keep up with you two at the same time. You go so fast.
I'll just ask you one question.
Okay.
One question.
Okay. Ken, remember when we were out at dinner and it'd be at somebody influential's house, and only certain people could attend, and then afterwards they would. But see, I didn't know he put all that in his book.
Eyes Wide Shut? Remember the movie Eyes Wide Shut?
No, I didn't see it. I did not see it.
Okay, the inner circle got invited to these things that were very sexual. So this was the inner circle party that Ken got invited to, and it was very sexual with these. I
went to some, but I left early.
Extraterrestrials.
I left early.
Ken. I want to say
it was educational.
It was
you be the boy, Ken.
Okay. Then Ken's the boy. Do you think you came away with any new awareness from being in that thing besides having a good time? I'm talking about, do you think they enhanced you, woke you up, or something? What happened being with these
I think it just gave me a better understanding and grip of what we are here on this planet, and I was very comfortable with who I was and who I am there. And the other thing I want to say real fast is, did either one of you wind up in meetings with Dr. Werner von Braun? Because I did.
He was at NASA a lot. I did.
Okay. And looking back
I
now,
ended up in the Star Trek conference in 1975 in New York City. Now, we had the other parts of this. We had J. Allen Hynek, Gene Roddenberry, Isaac Asimov, and Robert H. Heinlein. Now, they were four major characters in the original Secret Space program because I recently got intel that this was real, that Star Trek is real, and it has been.
Yes, it is.
And that was the first line of putting out the information to see who would follow that, just like the War of the Worlds when they tested it in the 20s or 30s or whatever on the radio, the 40s. In the 60s, our generation's version was Star Trek, to see who actually believed it and understood it. I got it.
Yeah.
I was in
and we've been struggling to try to get Oops.
I just want to finish my sentence, and then I'll pass the ball. But this conference, at the end of it, turned into a giant orgy, and I'm 21 years old, and I'm going, oh, my God, what is going on here? Okay, so I think the same thing happened with the energy in what you're describing, what Bill Tompkins was describing, that things got, and I'm wondering if that has something to do with this, I don't know, I'm grasping at straws because there's some commonality there, and then you have this cabal type thing which talks about the secret society, the secret space, secret society, and that was very, Eyes Wide Shut was very,
well, Janet, so let me tell you this. When we talk about my lifeline, I was married to different men. I believed you had to be married to have sex, and I was very spiritual, if you want to say, brought up in the Christian faith. But Steve, my husband, wasn't. He was what was he, Presbyterian? Anyway, his parents lived in Florida before I met him in Houston. And over here in Florida, around the NASA area, they were more promiscuous. But he had already learned all that.
He was Methodist.
Well, it doesn't matter because we shouldn't even think through our filters with world religions. But, the thing is, the sex part, now let me tell you what Steve was all for it. Steve was always trying to get me to go to that stuff. But, But, and I met a lot of famous people because he was my husband was popular with both men and women. So he was very into learning people intimately. I was not a wife swapper. I was not into anything like that, and I was surprised to find out that I didn't even know what he was talking about and all that. But a lot of people were, yes. But Tom, on the other hand, was not, and he was more like me. But off planet on a spacecraft, the women that he met wanted to have, they would be assigned to him and go to him. And they would be asked which ones wanted to go in. And, of course, they were pretty. And because, Janet, you may be disappointed, but they don't have women marrying and all that. And the babies are brought up separate from, they're working on a spacecraft, in space.
This would make it the secret space brothel program.
Well, I was married to two different. I was married to actually all of the men I married worked for the government. I never realized that till just now. Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, this is kinky, but yes, there is something reason I want to do separate topics, Janet, and this is going to have to be a weekly show just on the UFO Secret Space Command, because if you think of a human, how many years I've spent on the 67 and Ken spent 77, okay, and you said we look like a married couple. And, I was sitting there and I was supposed to be with Myron, and me and Ken were sitting there, and I gave him my skull and bones ring. And did you find my ring, Ken?
That's what I've been looking for. And I do finally remember that. I do. It's got to be in one of my boxes.
You were shocked it fit.
My souvenirs. No, nothing happened. Nothing happened.
Nothing happened. No, I witnessed it. Nothing happened. And we steered her off to Myron. Yeah, we said no, you got to go with Myron. So she ended up with Myron for a couple months or a year or whatever it was. Yeah.
Well, the
anyway,
thing is, people
space match.
There's different topics that we can. But Janet, there's different topics we can handle, and Janet likes the Anunnaki and the Tantra star, and the story. And Janet, just like you mentioned, there was a particular Tantra and the dancing, right? For this, let me mention it. That's what you call it, Sky Dancer UFO Con, Janet.
Well, the name of Margot Anand's Tantra is Sky Dancing Tantra. Let me pull that up. Sky Dancing, and then they're saying Sky Dancing UFO.
It's Sky Dancer. Sky Dancer.
Sky Dancer.
SKY
space.
Right.
Well,
yeah,
so
DANCR.
close, right? So,
but they say Native UFO Con. So he is part.
Right.
Daryl Sims, although he's an investigator in Houston, and I was, and so we had the VetPI people that knew each other, and then would go and do burn security or Wells Fargo, and I did both of those. But, in security, I wanted to work for the government. I sought the government out, but they'd already put it in my head when I was in the 1967, when I was a kid, before we even graduated high school. And then, but Daryl Sims has Native American blood. I have O positive, the oldest blood in the world. So a lot of people try to split hairs and make a lot of things about all the blood. But, yeah, we're going through change with the Nordics, and I worked with some Nordics in hospitals, and I worked with psychologists in hospitals. And, every time you say a word, then you split it. It's compartmentalized. So this UFO space program, I don't know what they call it, secret space program, because all this is human-made. These are words humans are making up for the levels of existence. And so I don't think anybody can own a secret space program like Corey is trying to say. But I never met Corey, although I've seen him just like everybody else maybe. I didn't go to conferences. The only thing I've gone to is the Mid-South Con in 2016. And I'm just now coming out, folks. This is my, I've been talking, but I haven't been given my physical 3D reality out to the conferences because, number one, I wasn't ready, and number two, I had to wait till the Bush dynasty over the other side. All right, Ken, go for it.
You had to maintain your credibility, the same that I've had to do with mine. I'm sure Janet has too. We're at a point now, though, that I think the world and the number of people that have had either direct contact. This is what ETs had to do, and they initially started out. You can talk about the flyover Washington D.C. or whether that was ours or theirs. But the point is back in the early days of War of the Worlds, people would panic and jump off buildings thinking that there were ETs attacking the world. We had to get our society to the point where they understand and can accept the fact that we are only a part of sentient beings in this whole universe, and it's about time that we get recognized and can become part. Now that we're at that phase, that's where those of us like ourselves can now come forward with other experiences that we've had with extraterrestrials in our lives, or how we are discovering that we've been chosen, picked, used, however you want to call it, and it's becoming more exciting. And this is going on day by day right now. I mean, it's amazing.
Yes, multi-level living in 3D reality, and now some people are going to argue dimensions. They're going to off levels. I've tried to get Tommy for years to talk about it, but dying and having firsthand experience, and then having memories. There's memories and there's experience, but there's putting them together from past life and reincarnation now. And that's how, and Richard Dolan should know this, and so should Jimmy Church. When the conferences started allowing, now I go way back to conferences. I'm not saying I didn't go back to the Whole Life Expo, or I went to the new, expos in L.A., San Fran, and I had offices in Hawaii and New York, California, and Dallas, and I was going to conferences and Las Vegas a lot. So nobody knows my story yet. But the thing is, we now are coming forth. Karen, Janet, I keep saying Karen, so I must be evoking her here. Ken, and Richard should know when people started adding all the people from Bud Hopkins forward and Dolores Cannon, and they wouldn't give us the time of day in the New Age community. They wouldn't even give us a UFO track. They fought us. There was the Rancha people and the Unity and all the New Agers with the Feel Good books, and the Human Potential people got a track, and but they would not put the UFO people. We were not accepted, folks, in the 80s in these conferences. Ken, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've got to ask you one quick question to both of you and other people that may be listening in, and that is a death experience. When I was born with a cyst over my left eyebrow,
And when they operated on me to remove that cyst, they just finished it, and then my heart stopped beating. I stopped breathing. The doctor had just been through training for mouth-to-mouth resuscitation just the month before that happened. They called for what they call for a pull machine, because I just said something about you swallow your tongue and everything else. And he had me up, sitting up crying, sitting on the table by the time they got there with the machine. But my heart had stopped beating for over 49 seconds. And in modern times, they would have called you dead. And the point is I'm so different from my other two brothers that I'm now finding out that was the moment in time in which the entity that I am now stepped into the body that was dying. And I'm wondering how many other people have had some types of experiences like that with an event in their lives. It could well show that we've been chosen to do a certain thing. If that's nothing more than being on the radio talking with TJ and Janet, then that's what I'm here for.
Well, a lot of people will demonize that, but you go back to the old days and we had walk-ins. You know, look
yes.
at Brad and Nancy or Francie Steiger that brought out Star People. And folks, if
yep.
you didn't read the book, you should read that. But, you know, I helped write a whole bunch of stuff through the years and put it into the system. But, you know, we can all make it demonize anything. And one of the guys says electricity. You know, you can use
yep.
electricity to light your home, or you can, you know, stick a bobby pin in an electric socket and shock yourself. And my kid's done that plenty of times. But there's so much to talk about that has not been talked about at these conferences. And they should not have any lack of material, but they started bringing in Neil Armstrong, his group, his nonprofit. He had a couple of them, and we talked about it. And then Ray Hernandez, one of four. And Janet, remember before they got that thing going really good, that they took all our information and they compared it all. And now
you're talking about a different Neil Armstrong.
No. I'm talking about him with not the Experiences group, but Janet, you know, when we filled out the forms, and they talk about it now in the UFO.
They were just starting, and they've done a lot of work. I don't want to, you know, take any credibility away from them.
They took our paperwork. It was shared. I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm just saying that there was paperwork out there.
They got everybody's. They got like I don't know, hundreds of these people have filled out forms, and I only did the first and second level. I didn't do the third level. I didn't have enough time to go to the third level. So, but anyway, they have.
So there's a lot of people trying to separate it.
Book. We got a giant book.
Absolutely.
From them with all these. I think it's I don't know, 500 to 1,000 pages or something. This giant book.
What's the name of it?
With all this information. I'm going to walk and see if I can see it while we're talking here. But I want to tell you, what I guess Ken was asking you, are you a walk-in? Do you have and I'll address that first, and we are going to run out of time here.
Right.
We've got 15 minutes. I don't identify as a walk-in. I remember coming in, and I had a full memory of who I was before I was human. And then there was intervention, which, you know, they brain wipe you, they shut you down for my own protection because I was remembering too much and there were I was being protected and hidden from another faction. You know, we have light and dark, good and bad, right? So they wanted to protect me, so they came in and kind of shut me down a level and mind wiped me so I wouldn't get hurt or killed. But no, I'm the original Janet, who is the original soul that goes all the way up to source. It's called Beyond UFOs, the Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence, Volume 1. And it's gigantic, big book. Editors Ray Hernandez, Dr. John Clemo, and Dr. Rudy Shield. This is what they're compiling from experiencer.org, and it is 775 pages, approximately. That's the new book they have out there. It's
okay,
huge.
and so that's Ray Hernandez?
All this research. Ray, Rudy Shield, and that whole organization called FREE, yeah. So, anyway, so that's my story. I remember who I was, and then I did a hypnotic regression. I recovered. There's usually like a screen memory. I remember something, and I'll say, to Dr. Listen, there's more to that story. What else is there? So we'll do a session, and then all the other information will come forward. It's not real difficult to get to it, but there are blocks, and then sometimes you can't get to it no matter what. So it takes time. It's like the Russian dolls, right? You know, the information is kind of inside each other, so you have to take out the top piece, and then you get access to the pieces underneath.
Well, the Ascension Age covers that. What?
Are you a walk-in?
Are
you the original soul or a walk-in?
At the original, up until 4 years old, because I knew who I was when I was 2. I know where we lived. I knew all the information. I knew all of it, but I still have all that information. But I know that I was somewhat different at age 4 with my family. That's when I learned of the, you know, you have the one in space, and then you have the one on Earth. And then I had past life memories. But I went to White Sands and was different, too, when my uncle worked for Los Alamos and then White Sands. So I have different memories here just like I do in past life memories. So I'm much more complicated than anybody that I've met thus far. But at one time, when I met J. Allen Hynek, before he died in 86, I was reading Ruth Montgomery's book, Aliens Among Us. So I know that part of me thought I was, because I was trying to learn about my entire path, the open walk or the spiritual path. And Ruth Montgomery and I were talking. I liked her book, and she and I were writing to each other. So when J. Allen Hynek came by me on a plane, I used to fly a lot, a whole bunch. But I don't know, Ken, it's like knowing or meeting you. I talked to him, but he came by me. And J. Allen Hynek said, excuse me, I was on the inside halfway in the plane, and he was in the back. But he said, he walked by me 2 or 3 times. So he said, do you, I noticed you were reading, he didn't say what you're reading. He said, do you believe in that stuff? And he was sort of sarcastic, so I didn't know how to answer him, but I tried to read him real quick, and I saw he was a good man. He was curious. But the first time we came by, I just mentioned something, but he came back by again, and he asked me, I don't know what he was doing going to the front of the plane. It wasn't that big of a jet. But he said, do you mind, the second time he came by, he says, listen, we've got a wall, and it was a long flight wherever we were going, and I know it's something to do with Chicago, or we both boarded O'Hare or something. I was in and out of O'Hare a lot. I was in and out of all over the country a lot as an investigator. But he said, do you mind, can you come back to the bulkhead, which is the back end of the plane, the tail? He would always sit right in the tail. And, Ken, you can tell me why. I guess it's supposed to be the safest place, right? But
well, it's the last part to break off.
Okay, well, that's where he sat, and he asked me to come back there, so I did. I got to know him, and I'm sure there's a file on me with not CSETI, CUFOs, right, Center of UFO. But this was back during the time where, like, Dr. Bruce Maccabee and APRO, all those people. We got to go way back into the history of UFOs on the planet, folks, and I plan on doing that. So, Ken, what topics do you want to see happen? Do you have them split up other than past lives or consciousness and memories versus, because see, in the Ascension Age, that's what I got. My downloads in the 80s, I don't think I was a walk-in, but at that time I was looking for how am I supposed to put all these pieces together. And Dr. J. Allen Hynek, I blew him away. He had never met anybody like me. Totally blew him away because I was much more intelligent than he thought I was going to be. Or at least it's what he told me. That's what he told me anyway, because I had different parts. So in one way, in one school, Ken, I may be a part of me, but on the other hand, I may not be, because of my DNA, and I'm working with too many people on the human genome, or we call it a project, but working on what we are with, every part of us, and telomeres and the future of humans. So we're all part of all these groups that have come and gone, right? But the memories of being here now and people we left behind and people we left on the planet, and, we're proving now that we're billions, billions, and billions of years old. So it just depends on where you're at in your life discovery. But let me give you two. Please tell me, what part do the topics, levels, timelines, and metaphysics are you willing to come back and talk about? It's very complicated, this UFO space stuff. It's not just the people. It's everything that involves.
I think
Go ahead,
at this
Ken.
point, my mother used to always say, if you want to know something, just wind Kenny up and put him in the corner and he'll entertain you. I
believe that.
There's any subject. I don't think there's any subject that we can bar, but we just need to know how to approach it, kind of like what we did with Bill Tompkins and our connection there.
You want to keep building. Go ahead.
I'm sorry? Say it again?
I said we'll keep building, so go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
That's what I think, that opening it up for other people that have had similar type experience. We've touched on enough tonight, I think, that ought to start people looking at their past lives or their present lives and experiences, the things that they've experienced more recently, and see if we can't bring it out there. Because I'm this whole business, I don't mean business as making money, but because I don't know if any of us are really making money, maybe other just covering our expenses to get to and from some of the meetings.
It costs me more money. It costs me money to do this in the thousands every year, because I produce and Janet does, to get the word out.
That's the point. And to get the word out, we need, hopefully, that what we're doing will trigger people's thoughts and let them realize they're not alone, and that there are those of us that have stepped forward and cleared the path, that then they can now come forward with the experiences they've had, because that's what this is all about. I touched on it in the very beginning, where that people panicked and jumped over. We are now mature enough as a species that we can accept that we're not alone in this universe. That's insane to think that we are. And now it's time that we should be moving forward, full disclosure, to make ourselves recognized in the universe and become part of the intelligent sentient beings. And by that I mean the positive ones. There are some negative things that we've got to deal with, but right now let's deal on the positive and see if we can't push this thing. I put out a year or two ago about the 2018, before the end of the year, which is coming real soon, we will be into full disclosure. And that depends upon what some people say. I feel like what we've done tonight is full disclosure. We just need to keep it going for everybody.
Janet, last words until you want to do this next week.
I love that. Yeah. Well, I'm all about disclosure, and of course, disclosure has many subparts, and it's disclosing the whole paradigm of what's going on, what's really going on underneath the public educational system, which seems to be more programming than it is authentic information about what's really happening. So I've been on my other show interviewing all these whistleblowers. Everybody brings a piece of the puzzle to the pie, and I don't judge anybody's stories. I know some people get bogged down in, are they lying? They telling the truth? That to me is like a waste of time. I'm getting the story. What's the story? Because there's so much mind wiping and shooting and shaming and all this stuff that layers over people's stories, and they're afraid to tell it or that it can't come out. So I'm encouraging this story to come out, and then I approach it a different way. I look at the commonalities, the similarities, and I get the bigger picture. I'm looking at the big, giant picture of what's really going on and finding the multiverse that works best for everybody. That's what I'm looking for. What reality can we all converge upon where everybody's going to get their needs met? We're all going to be happy. And I know there is a reality where, we don't have so much suffering and death and dying and every day somebody's killing somebody. I can't just turn on my phone or my TV anymore. Somebody's killing somebody, public executions and these terrorist attacks. So we've got to get to a level besides warring on each other, either on the personal level or the galactic level or the planetary level, finding this place where we can all love each other and be in peace and harmony and cooperation. So that's what I'm looking for. So if this is a path to doing it, sign me up. I'm ready to go until till it's over, you know.
And people, if you want to know UFO experience with David Wilcock, Corey Good, Emery Smith, Dr. Stephen Greer, Dr. Michael Sala, all those big names, and Richard Dolan even, and, you know, those, you're separating it by thoughts and people and individual authors. But what I want to do is bring an author's book club together with Ken and Janet, and we would appreciate it if you will write everybody has their own life story. So if you will, let us know, are you more into alienology, ufology, or ufology? Because I remember when the ufology, we were fighting over whether we were going to make that a word or not. I also remember when we were fighting, were we going to be aliens or ETs? And we decided pretty much back in the day we would call aliens the bad guys and extraterrestrials the good guys. But after a while, that didn't fly. But I do want to mention start Skydancer UFO Con, 37 days to the event. I just was notified today, January 19th. Put it on your calendars at the Holiday Inn, Houston Intercontinental Airport. That's 15222 John F. Kennedy Boulevard, Houston, Texas, 77032. Now, my contact is Daryl Sims with our Alien UFO Hunters, plural, just like the television show. And so you guys know I'm into paranormal and supernatural. You know, I'm a TV blogger for television shows. I don't make a penny at this. Matter of fact, it costs me money to do this. It costs me a lot of money. So people, we are going to be hopefully helping each other. And now Tommy's got his own channel on here, so I have to thank him for the last 6 months as a space holder on the Universal Life Ministries. We have people that do prefer to talk only spirituality, and through those filters and those names, and that's fine. We have spiritual science. We have ascension. And ascension, when I got the download and got all of this, got me started, and I want to talk about that. And the Janet, the crop circle lady, she's been in touch with me and put us on UFO Secret Space. So next week, maybe, I didn't see Chan come on unless she tried to get on Skype and couldn't. And so did you see anything from her in your anything?
No. All right, you've got the back end. You're the only one that has the back end.
All right. Well, I didn't see anything. So, folks, we will return. Ken, you want to be a co-host for this Thursday night with me and Janet? That means we'll be stuck. Mm-hmm.
I'm available, so I guess I'm available.
All right. Well, I'd like to start billing you and see if you can show up, because if nobody else, we'll have the three of us as a panel discussion, which worked well tonight, but we may get into these topics, levels of life, timelines, and metaphysics that's in UFO Secret Space Command to start. And then in here we've got how we deal with ufology, alienology, avatars, New Age, metaphysics, and Ascension Age. And New Age is separate from Ascension Age. Ascension Age officially began 12/21/12 and the Kali Yugas and the time on the earth. But we can talk about what the government believes, what we believe, and I didn't even get into the reality of my husband's story that Janet knows a little bit of it. Ken, I don't know, and I don't know that Ken knows all of it, or a little piece. But Tom Morris is okay. He was a CIA agent I was married to, and he and I both worked for President Reagan. And I had to wait till I felt comfortable, because I knew of President Bush and met him. And the men in black came around me to make sure that they emptied the Memorial Park when he was going to run to meet me. And that's a whole show. So Janet, if you can, stay in touch with me and Ken. And Ken, we can each talk about what we're going to start building up for these shows. And then I want to have a conference down here, and I can invite up Dolores and Betty and Barney Hill's niece. Tell me her name, Janet. I talked to her on the phone.
Oh, I know.
We've had her on. I know my
She's
mom's
hung out with. Yeah. She
wrote with
hangs out
Stan Friedman.
Stan Friedman. Yeah. I'll think of it. Anyway,
Isn't
we're
that so funny? We're brain dead. We're brain dead.
Yeah,
because she's going to shoot me. All right. Well, thank you, Ken. And apparently you have agreed. Thank you so much, Ken. And Ken, we may just enjoy discussing more topics. And Janet, in the next Thursday, do you want to syndicate it, or you just want to control it and then download it? You know how to download back on your channel.
I can download and upload it. I don't have to. Yeah, I'll just download and upload it. So let's write it out.
We've learned a lot, haven't we?
I'll put it out there. We certainly
all right.
have.
All right. You both learned you've got to stay in direct contact with me, or my pea brain kind of drops out and finds out, well, I'm supposed to be on the program. Appreciate your patience.
Well, on Thursday, just put it on your calendar. Yeah, put it on your calendar. And so people, as far as I know, this time's going to work for the three of us. It worked out okay for you, Ken?
Yeah, it'll be fine. Thursday's
all right,
yeah,
Janet, you're
good.
Okay. All right,
yes.
Well, let's see how long we can run it this time, Janet. We'll see, because we've done this for years. So, folks, we're open to suggestions. Please email me at tjmarsagency@gmail.com. Janet Carol Lesson. Janet, where do you want yours? And then Ken, where do you want your email?
Just aquarianradio@gmail.com. AQUARIAN radio@gmail. And I'm on the red. My phone's going to go boop in any second.
All right. Well, I'll let Ken. All right. Well, okay. Ken Johnston is yours is go ahead. Mars 1 astronaut, aren't you?
That is correct. You have to spell out the number 1. It's MARSONE. I've had people say, I've been sending you messages for 2 years and you've never answered them. You stuck up. I said, how did you spell it? ONE, astronaut at gmail.com. Mars 1 astronaut at gmail.com.
Okay, and I'm going to go back in and put your pictures now that you showed up. But Ken, I would like a press kit from you with your own, just send it in an email with your latest bio, because you mentioned something, and I need to make sure that we all have an updated bio on you and your new books. Go ahead and mention your book. It's over, but they didn't cut me off yet, so we've got a little time over. But what's the name of your books? Go ahead and mention them. Oh, he fell off. I guess he left. Okay.
I'm still here, but I'm going to hang up because it's going to go.
Okay.
Boop.
Thank
right,
you, Janet.
You. Love and
all
blessings.
Right.
Aloha. Talk to you tomorrow.